starts with Phillis Wheatley. And I start with Wheatley because I see her as the beginning. She is the pathway. Through Wheatley's poetry, I arrived at the following understanding of African spirituality in the New World. And I'll just read a little bit from this chapter. In the history of African American literature, we find a legacy of women's writings that draw on the physical and experiential to explore matters of spirituality. This tradition of spiritual musings is guided by four principles central to pre-Middle Passage African cosmology. One, the value of memory to both individual and group well-being. Two, the belief that community represents the essence of human existence and being. Three, the view that nature, both animate and inanimate, represents divineness. And four, belief in the interconnectedness of worldly and otherworldly beings. These principles are integral to Black epistemological and ontological thought, pre- and post-Middle Passage, and are central to shaping a tradition of spiritual exploration in Black women's writing. African American women writers from Wheatley to Morrison integrate these themes in their work, signaling the early maintenance and integration of an African worldview among displaced Africans and the important role of women as carriers of culture. And if I can, I want to go to two places in the chapter on Phillis Wheatley that draw on these connections. In the first passage I'm going to look at, it is a discussion of Wheatley's poetry as Wheatley draws these connections to God and nature. And in the second passage, it is a look at Wheatley and her poetry and their reflections on community. In light of the commonly held belief among pre-colonial Africans that nature is the manifestation of God's power, Wheatley's preoccupation with God's most marvelous natural wonder, the sun, is understandable. Among African people, the sun is sacred. According to Mbidi, numerous African societies maintain that, quote, sunshine is one of the expressions of God's providence, end quote. He points out the Akan, who refer to God as, quote, the shining one, and the Ankori, whose name for God means sun. The connection that Mbidi draws between the African's concept of the sun and God's benevolence is one that Wheatley draws in her works. In three meditative poems, Thoughts on the Works of Providence, and Hymn to the Morning, and Hymn to the Evening, Wheatley reveals a sacred reverence for the sun that exemplifies Mbidi's findings. Thoughts on the Works of Providence is ostensibly a meditation on the Christian God. However, Wheatley's conflation of Christianity's God and the God of her African homeland, whose being is manifested in nature, in particular the sun, demonstrates the religious duality that Wheatley negotiates. It is worth noting that in this poem, reflecting on providence, Wheatley combines terms that predate Mbidi's observation by more than 2 centuries. Mbidi's explanation of the African concept of the sun as providential and benevolent is exemplified in Wheatley's work. And then on Wheatley and community, while many scholars have painted Wheatley as a young Black woman isolated from the larger slave community as well as dominant white society, Wheatley's poetry and her correspondences suggest the contrary. Wheatley felt a particular connection to whites who were sympathetic, or that she thought capable of being sympathetic, to the principle of African rights and humanity. Hence, her eulogy to George Whitefield, well-known sympathizer of Africans in bondage, celebrates his vision of a God who offers grace to all and focuses more on the ideology of the man than the man himself. Quote, "He prayed that grace in every heart might dwell," she says of Whitefield. She credits him with having indiscriminately called sinners to Christ. Whitefield's recognition of the African's equality in the eye of God renders him part of Wheatley's spiritual community, as his position affirms her self-worth and equality. Wheatley's many eulogies serve to connect her to a community of Christians and reflects an African worldview that maintains death as a human transition that must be acknowledged and experienced by the community. In traditional African societies, the individual does not face death alone, but rather is attended by members of the community to help in the crossing over experience. The death event must be followed by ceremony that celebrates the life of the departed and the entrance into the world of the spiritual. While her eulogies may be read for their Puritan-influenced notions of the deliverance from suffering to the heavenly hereafter, they may also be interpreted as Wheatley's transformation of a traditional African spiritual ritual to a written form. Her eulogies represent a written enactment of the African celebration of the dead. Again, an act that calls on the community to remember and to celebrate.